There have been many things removed from Overwatch, some of which were heavily publicised, like the removal of Tracer's notorious butt pose, but others you might not know about. Let's take a look at some of the things that Blizzard decided to remove from Overwatch. On Route 66, behind the Deadlock Gang's bar, there is an outhouse for the patrons to relieve themselves in after a few drinks. However, once upon a time that wasn't the only kind of relief that the Outlaws were getting, as the stall also contained some glossy magazines featuring centre page spreads of some of Overwatch's female characters. The images used were nothing unusual, but the implication of their location on the toilet floor is pretty clear. I don't think they were just reading them for the articles. It wasn't long before Blizzard patched this out of the game, and they managed to avoid any major potential backlash, but that wasn't the case with our next removed item. Yes, the notorious Tracer butt pose was removed in a rather dramatic fashion shortly before the game's release. The victory pose began to generate some hate after a player drew attention to it on the forums. It quickly spiraled out of control as media outlets jumped on the outrage train, and pressure mounted until Blizzard finally removed the pose. While some players believed the whole thing was ridiculous and it should never have been removed, others were happy to see the pose being replaced. But its replacement was a bit of a double-edged sword. The new pose is actually based on a classic pin-up girl image. It's certainly more playful than its predecessor, but it's got to be a subtle nod to all the players who couldn't see what all the fuss was about. A number of abilities have also been completely removed from the game. Some of these happened early in development. For example, Bastion once had a deployable mine as an ultimate, and Lucio could slow down time. But just as interesting are the abilities that got into the player's hands for months before they got changed. Bastion, for example, has been one of the most altered heroes in the game. Once upon a time, he had a protective barrier in front of him when in sentry mode, but he couldn't turn around, leaving him exposed from behind. This is actually still shown in the official Bastion ability overview on the Overwatch YouTube channel. While Genji's Swift Strike wasn't completely removed, one of its effects was. Initially, it used to apply a bleed effect that would deal damage over time. This was later removed, but just like Bastion's shield, it's still in the overview. One ability I'm sure many of you know was removed is Symmetra's barriers, which she previously applied to allied heroes. This was removed as part of her major rework after the game's release. Some voice lines have been removed from the game as well, such as this one.
I am the hammer of justice!
But even more surprising is that entire characters' voices have been removed. Every line of dialogue for Mercy was changed during the beta, when the fantastic voice actress Lucy Pohl came on board.
I've got my eye on you.
I have my eye on you.
In regards to the change, Blizzard stated that when casting for Overwatch, they always try to find actors who are fluent in a character's native language, and in the case of Mercy, they were able to find an actress who could not only speak fluent German, but could also capture the essence of Mercy. While many new features have been added to the game since its release, some have actually been removed. For example, you used to be able to rate how much you enjoyed a match. Blizzard had high hopes for this feature, but in reality, all they learnt was three things. New players use the rating system more, players enjoy winning, and players don't enjoy losing. Not exactly a breakthrough in understanding the gamer's psyche, so the feature was scrapped. Another similar feature to get cut from the game is the option to avoid this player. It seemed like a good idea on paper, you could avoid someone who was rude or a sore loser. However, what really happened was players would avoid anyone who was better than them, and as a result, these good players would have exceedingly long queue times. This was causing major problems with the matchmaking system. One of the best Widowmakers complained to Blizzard about it, and they found that hundreds of players had avoided them, although they hadn't done anything wrong. The problem was that he was left in the queue for so long, the system would begin to open up the pool of players to match him with even wider, and he would end up playing against players at an even lower skill level, making the situation worse. So it got removed. So which, if any, of these removed items do you want to see added back in? Do you think those special magazines should make a reappearance, or perhaps you think Bastion could really do with a shield again? Let me know in the comments below. As always, this is James Foucault saying thanks for watching, and enjoy the game.